Hi and welcome to today's episode, which is all about making the most incredible tasting vegan cheese that I've ever tried. I started filming this video 2 weeks ago. When I played the footage back, the audio hadn't recorded, but I have got the close-up footage. So I thought what I'll do is talk you through what I did now and then cut that through with the close-up footage. It's so frustrating. I must have hit mute or something because I checked it when I started rolling and everything's fine. Technology, wonderful. So this is the vegan cheese, and you can instantly see it's nothing like the texture of a commercial vegan cheese. The main component of the cheese is wheat starch that I washed out of a bag of flour when making seitan. It's known amongst vegans as spawn, the spawn of seitan. And what you do basically for making wash the flour seitan, make a dough ball, leave it, and then you wash the starch out of it in cold water and rinse it in warm water. There's a process, I'll put links in the description for you. So I collected all of the starch, filtered off the water from the top of it, and then bunged it in the freezer. I think this was from the kind of gammon flavoured one that I did for the pot-au-feu. Links to everything I mentioned will be in the description for you, so you can get in-depth looks on how to make everything. If you don't happen to have a bag of spawn in your freezer, don't worry, you can buy wheat starch from Chinese supermarkets, possibly other places as well. I've not seen it in kind of mainstream high street supermarkets, or you can buy it online as well. The recipe for this one kind of built on the potato powder cheese that I did a while back, so it's using the instant mashed potato powder. This is the instant mashed potato powder. I'm not sure exactly how they process it, but it's potato that's dried and powdered. I mixed all of the ingredients in the saucepan cold. My thought process was that as it heats, it's going to thicken and probably become quite difficult to then start working things into it consistently. I mean, by all means, try and mix things in as it's heating, but that's on you, that is. I took 500 grams of the spawn. The consistency of it was like double cream, maybe. If you needed to do that with using starch powder, I'd do maybe 400 grams of starch and 100 grams of water. None of the measurements need to be exact. It's going to be more of a flavour thing. I mixed in 3 tablespoons of nutritional yeast. You might hear it called Nooch. That's to give it kind of a cheesy, nutty sort of flavour that kickstarts that flavour that we're after. I did 2 tablespoons of white miso. That's to give it some funky, umami, kind of fermented sort of flavour that cheese has. I opted for white instead of brown because it's got a much milder flavour. You could use brown, but I would reduce that massively, maybe do half a tablespoon, 1 tablespoon, something like that. But white, it's just got a very kind of cheesy flavour anyway. So, and then combine that with the Nooch. Yeah, it's great. I did a 1/4 teaspoon of fine sea salt. The miso is quite salty, so you don't need tons in there. I did 1 teaspoon of vegan lactic acid powder. It's got that kind of tanginess that you get from yogurt, cheese, that kind of acidic sort of flavour. Sour and tart, but then there's also something else there as well, like you get in pickles or any sort of lacto-fermented foods. That's the flavour. You could possibly use something like sauerkraut brine, that sort of thing. That might work quite well. At that point, I whisked everything together really well, and then once everything was consistently mixed, I put it on the heat. I did it on a sort of medium heat. I think it was on 6. Mine goes up to 9. You don't want it too hot because it'll start gelling really quickly before you can control it. So it's better to go lower and then increase it if it needs to be. Once the heat was under it, I then poured in 100 grams of melted refined coconut oil. That's to give it the kind of fatty mouthfeel, and I'd opt for the refined coconut or deodorized because they've taken the coconut flavour away from it. If you don't mind that coconut flavour, obviously just use regular coconut oil, that's fine. Then I mixed in 3 tablespoons of the mashed potato powder. I added the mashed potato powder to give it a bit of body because otherwise it would have just been starch mostly. The texture would have just been sort of like a jelly sweet almost, like a very hard jelly sweet. I reckon you could probably use just cooked potato as well. So if you've got any leftover mash or, make a jacket potato and scrape the insides out, as long as you can get it nice and smooth, or mostly smooth, depending on how much patience you've got. Use a potato ricer even, like I've used for the gnocchi, that sort of thing, work just as well. The only thing to watch out for in there is because the potato will be wet, you might have to tweak it a little bit. If you've got cornstarch or something like that, or tapioca, you might need to add a bit more in. Maybe, I don't know. Next time I make it, I'll use cooked potato, just so then I can tell you what to do. So if I do that video, the link will be in the description, and you can check the pinned comment as well, because I update recipes there as and when I do things. I then cooked it out for about 25-30 minutes on the stove. It'll go very thick, and then it'll start getting quite lumpy. It'll break into sort of chunks. It's a lot of work on your arms. My hands are ruined by the end of it. If you can, I'd opt for a non-stick saucepan. I did it in just a stainless, and it did stick on the bottom, so just keep scraping the bottom of it, because otherwise things will burn and you'll get that flavour in there. Starches need to be heated to a certain temperature to activate the gelatinization. I think I've said that right. And different starches have got different temperatures. I took this to about 74 degrees, just to be on the safe side. When everything's cold, you'll see it looks kind of like cream almost, but then once the gel starts activating, it goes a little bit translucent, so you can kind of see through it. Not quite, but you'll know what to look for. I'll maybe do a side-by-side on screen for you. Because it was all very theoretical, I had to be a bit instinctive when I was making it. So I noticed as I was stirring it, bits that had been in contact with the bottom of the pan went darker in colour, and then they got that translucency. So I just kept cooking it out, sticking the probe in to check the temperature. And once everything was the consistent colour, I thought that's a sign to stop and pack it into a tub. It could be that I didn't need to take it above 70. It might have even worked at 60. I don't know. Now, if you haven't got the probe, what I do is just cook it until it's all darkened to the same degree, and it forms like crumbly lumps almost. I packed mine into a plastic tub from the Chinese takeaway. Just anything that's in a block kind of shape. The only thing is that you end up with the ridges from the takeaway tub, but that's fine. It doesn't affect the flavour. I'm going to try and get this into shot for you so you can see the texture of it. So it is very crumbly, very flaky. It reminds me a lot of parmesan. It's that kind of creaminess, crumbly. There is a slight graininess there, and I think that's probably from the potato powder. So maybe cooked potato would work even better. But in terms of flavour, spot on. I'm going to heat up my cast iron pan. I just want to see if it melts. I don't think it will. There's not nearly enough oil in there, but it's worth a shot. This will be really nice cheese for putting on sandwiches, burgers, that kind of thing. Obviously, it's not going to melt like a burger cheese would, but in terms of the flavour, it's going to be spot on. You could make a really simple and fast supper, making like a deli board. So do the cheese, maybe a couple of seitan meats. You could do the kind of prosciutto style sausage that I made. Things like olives, capers, bread, crackers, chutney. I'll stick the link to the trio of dips. All three of those would work really nicely alongside this cheese. That might work quite nicely in the baked grain risotto, like big cubes of it, because it's not going to melt loads, I don't think. We'll find out in a minute. So it should hold its shape. I'm just going to drop a piece in, see what happens. Okay, so it does melt a little bit actually. This is a very hot pan, and I've only had that in like 10 seconds, something like that. And yeah, it is melting. That's the bit that was in the pan. Yeah, and it goes a little bit sort of translucent again. Ooh, a bit like halloumi, like grilled halloumi. Well, that's dinner tonight sorted. I'm gonna have cheese on toast. The only slight issue with it is because it's so crumbly, it doesn't slice brilliantly, so you get more shards. But, you know, unless you're looking for something very specific in appearance, it's really good. The flavour, it's quite cheddar-y. It's that kind of cheesy flavour. And there's none of the sweetness that a lot of commercial vegan cheeses have. Been thinking through possible kind of adaptations, versions, that kind of thing. I think to lean into the parmesan, if you get some coarse sea salt, so it's coarser granules, and mix that through, because then you'll get those kind of grainy crystals that parmesan has. I'm not sure how much the rest of the cheese will absorb the salt, so you might want to put some fine salt into the whole mix and then fold in, you know, stir in the crumbs once it's at a lump sort of stage, or even take it out of the pan and put gloves on, like washing up gloves to protect the heat a little bit. And fold it in that way. I might try doing a version with coconut cream instead of coconut oil, or maybe a bit of coconut oil as well. I'm thinking that might make it even creamier, just sort of extra luxury. Maybe even make some cashew cream. Soak cashews either overnight, or you can do a quick soak with boiling water for half an hour. Blend that down with a little bit of water, and then it forms like a cream. You could put peppercorns in there, chopped jalapeno chilies if you wanted like a pepper jack type. When I did the initial batch of the potato powder cheese, I smoked it and it takes on the smoky flavour really well, just using the smoking gun. It wasn't even a proper smoke or anything. Smoking also preserves it really well. So I think I had a piece in the fridge for about 6 months, and it goes really hard. So it's perfect for grating on top of pasta and that kind of thing. You could mix some liquid smoke in there as well if you wanted like a really easy way of getting some smoky flavour. You could put herbs and spices in here as well, no problem at all. So you could do like caraway seeds. When I did the other batch of cheese, I put in the fenugreek seeds, a bit like maple syrup, but not nearly as sweet. And then it's got this kind of spicy vibe to it. There's a Dutch cheese that uses the fenugreek. That's what inspired me to try it. It tastes incredible. If you want to put spices in, I'd recommend doing whole spices rather than powder. Do whatever you want, obviously, but I prefer putting whole spices in there, because then you've got little bits, so you've got a bit of variety. So there's bits that are plain, and then bits that have got loads of flavour around the spice. Hit subscribe and tap the bell icon for more vegan deli board ideas that will make your belly happy. And then head over to this one.